You see this little vision of the baby's head coming. And I say to the mummy, feel where your baby's head is. And they say, oh my gosh, that's my baby. My baby is coming. Being a midwife for me is blood run. It's not a job. It's so much deeper than that. If you take time and you listen to women, they will tell you so much, which then guides the care. And suddenly you see this little face, little eyes, little head, all sort of wet, and the hair. And again, I say to mummies, just pop your hands, feel your baby, it's coming.
There's nothing more powerful than a birth. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. Today, I have a guest who is very close to my heart. I have Jenny Smith here. Jenny Smith is a midwife. I have discovered her when I was pregnant with my son, JJ. And if it wasn't for her, my son would either not have been alive or would have brain damage from the birth. It's a bit of a deep story, very personal story that I haven't shared yet publicly. I'm going to share it today. And you're someone that I can never forget because you had such a positive impact on my life. And you're an amazing midwife. You listened to me. You listened to my mother's instinct that was telling me something was off. And you were there, and my son was delivered safely and beautifully, although his brother might argue that he does have brain damage. One shouldn't laugh about these things, but you know how brothers are. Jenny, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's such an honour to be with you after all these years, to reconnect, which is so wonderful.
I know. I found Jenny, so obviously when someone has such an impact on you in your life, you can never forget them. And I looked you up and I saw you were on social media and I reconnected. And here we are to talk about birthing, about women, about how women can have the best birth based on their circumstances and how they can enjoy this very special time of bringing a life onto this earth.
Being a midwife for me is blood run. It's not a job. It's so much deeper than that. And I'm so grateful in my life I found exactly the journey that I could have never dreamt I'd have, with so many connections with mothers and babies and the family of the NHS and so many experts over the years. So it's the deepest love I come to you today because I think my midwifery is based on love, connection, and most importantly, it's not me leading women, it's women leading me. I've always followed them, and they know. And it's believing in the visceral approach. Because if you take time and you listen to women, they will tell you so much, which then guides the care. And, you know, thinking of a couple of examples sometimes, obviously I'm so grateful to have looked after so many women in case loading. So I've seen them and had continuity of care with them, know their families, know them as a unique person and their baby's unique. But little statements, I think, teach you so much. For example, a lady not long ago said to me, I said, "How are you?" And she said to me, "I so love the fact I'm going to have a baby, but I so don't enjoy the journey of the pregnancy." And I thought that was so small in a sentence, but so huge in asking for support and guidance. And there's so many little anecdotes that if you don't just sit and listen and be calm and wait and have patience, you wouldn't pick up. But obviously with that lady, we could explore more and find more support in the ways that she needed for that pregnancy. The joy and the love of women and families that I've had and the connection in so many in-depth ways. And sometimes women say to me afterwards, but Jenny, thank you so much for everything you've done. And I say, I mirror that back and say, thank you for choosing me as your midwife and our relationship that we've had. And it makes me also, almost have tears of joy, because I've been so, so lucky to have such a wonderful life with women, families, babies, and the NHS around it all.
There's nothing more powerful than a birth.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything more powerful than seeing a baby come.
I think that's true. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought, do you know, what is one of the hugest, best moments in my life? And I think it's that moment when you know the baby's going to come out. And the mother is thinking, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do this. I can't do this. It's transition. And they say, yes, you can do this.
I remember.
You can do this. And then you see this little vision of the baby's head coming. And I say to the mummy, just feel where your baby's head is. And they say, oh my gosh, that's my baby. My baby is coming. And then slowly, as they push the baby out, little push, little push, little push, breathing. And the little head arrives. And suddenly you see this little face, little eyes, little head, all sort of wet, and the hair. And again, I say to mummies, just pop your hands, feel your baby, it's coming. And then you wait for the next contraction. And then you push the little baby out, and it's just from all curled up, all beginning to stretch. And then the mummy lifts the baby up, skin to skin, on the womb on the outside, protected by her skin, by her smell, by her heart, by her voice, and the womb on the outside, in the beginning of the outer side of the womb.
So beautiful. So before we talk about, I want to talk about my birth story and how instrumental you've been in it. But before we dive into that, so you were an NHS midwife, you have written a book, you have been in countless, you've given talks around the world, you have lectured, you have been a part of charities, you care very much about women leading birth. Yes. How did you, so your CV is so big, I'm not going to go and read it all, it's just so, you've done so much. How did you decide to become a midwife, and how has that happened in your life?
Yes, this was amazing. I was actually a nurse first, and I think over the years my nursing's been very valuable to my career, of thinking there's a womb and a baby and the midwifery bit, but also there's a body around. And I remember when I was 17 and a half, I didn't know anything about babies and birth or anything else, but I was in my training as a nurse, and we were in a district general hospital. And back in the day, it wasn't as sort of, I would say, with women as it is today. And I remember in this quite stark hospital, the matron saying there's going to be a birth, and we were going to see this birth. And me and some other students, I think there were about 5 of us, she said, when the bell goes, the red bell, that means there's going to be a birth, and you come to the birth. So I didn't even know what the birth was. I didn't even at this time grasp the anatomy of things. And so we were put in little gowns, little masks and little hats, and we were frog marched to outside this room that was not unlike an operating theatre, although it was just a birthing room. And we were told to walk in, put our backs along the wall, so we didn't move away from the wall at all. And in front of us was a woman on a bed. So we were actually facing the birth canal from the wall. And there was attendees on one side. I think there was a midwife. I think the other side, I'm not sure if it was a midwife or a doctor. And the mother was in a very conventional position with her legs apart. And we saw this birth. And I kept thinking, I don't think anything's going to happen. And then, oh my gosh, the baby's head came out. And then the baby's body. And then the baby was rubbed up by the midwife and held by the midwife and wrapped up, ready to go for a bath. The mother was taken out and the baby went to the nursery for a little bit and then later was presented to the mother. I think the mother saw the baby all wrapped up but never had the skin to skin.
Oh, they cleaned the baby first. Wow.
Yeah. And then they used to bath the baby.
Before seeing the mum. Interesting.
Yes. The mother saw the baby but all wrapped up at the birth. And then the baby was taken away to be bathed and then given to the mother.
Okay.
And the babies were kept in a nursery. And I thought about that moment for so long because it was very profound and it made me think, I must be a midwife. But it also made me think, was the mother asked for us to view this birth? Was there any consent? Did she have any choices in exactly how she gave birth? And there's many, many questions, and I don't know all these answers even now, but it just seemed so hospital controlled without, the choices the mother like. Did she want to be in that position? Did she want to have a birth like that? There was no real birthing on the floor, bean bags, mats, beautiful dimmed environments. It seemed all very stark, but it did give me the magical gift of wanting to be a midwife.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I know exactly what you're saying. So the first time I gave birth to my eldest son, Will, in 2008, I knew I couldn't have an epidural because I have a deficiency in a clotting factor. I have factor 11 deficiency. So it was going to be a natural birth without, obviously, painkiller apart from gas and air. And I remember people coming and going from the room. And whenever they came, it hurt more. I would feel the pain more.
Yeah.
And I really disliked that. And also the way I birthed, it didn't really work. And you did something different, and I'm going to come to it. So they put me on my back with the feet up, and the baby didn't come.
Yeah.
So they had to do an episiotomy, and then they had to use forceps, and because the baby became distressed. But I remember during that process where people kept coming and going in the room, that my pain would increase. And so because I couldn't be left in peace, I pretended that I wanted to go to the bathroom. And I went to a bathroom, those bigger bathrooms in hospital for disabled people, so they're big squares. And I sat down on all fours and I rocked myself.
Yeah.
And the pain started going. And I could feel that I was feeling better because I was in the dark by myself. No one was bothering me. And during that process, I remember thinking, I think deep down we're very animalistic. And this is what my body wants, but I couldn't change the process. I was in the middle of labor. So the second time round, I learned my lessons and I hired a doula to help me prepare. I had an obstetrician because of the complication of the factor 11 deficiency where I needed to be cared for by a doctor. And I definitely wanted to stay safe. I wouldn't have risked giving birth at home knowing that I had potentially a risk of bleeding and things like that. So I wanted to do it within a hospital environment as safe as possible, but as natural as possible too. Because also, I read this book by Michel Odent called The Scientification of Birth, where I learned that love is the same thing for everyone, whether you fall in love with a partner or the love for your parents or for your children or for your friends, it's oxytocin. It is the same magical, beautiful hormone. Oh my God, it gives me goosebumps. That helps us contract and open and let the baby out.
Yes.
And what I learned as well is that the number of C-sections went through the roof from the moment fathers were allowed in the birthing room, because men, when they need to take action, they have adrenaline that kicks in. But oxytocin, Michel Odent explains in his book, shies away in the presence of adrenaline.
Yes.
So for my second birth, I banned the father of my children from coming into the room. I said to him, "You're full of adrenaline. I do not want you." Then my obstetrician was a man, and I specifically asked that he stayed behind the door and that he would only come in the case of an emergency. And that was in my birth plan with the doula. Needless to say, he was not very impressed by that. So all of that was in place. But one day, and that's where instinct is so important, I was 36 weeks pregnant. My belly was huge. I woke up one morning, I'll never forget. I was in the bathroom, I looked at my belly, and I thought, oh my God, I need to take, this baby is going to have to come out. And this baby is huge. I could tell. My first baby was 8 pounds, so 3.8 kilos, and I could tell this one was bigger. So I went to my doctor and I said, I feel this baby is huge. They did an ultrasound, but they concluded that it was amniotic fluid that made the size of the belly, and that the baby was very similar in size to his brother. Except I was correct. My instinct told me it was huge, and JJ actually turned out to be 4.8 kilos, 10.5 pounds at birth. So my gut feeling was right. And that day, when I was standing in my bathroom, I thought to myself, it's great that I have a doula, Kirsten. It's great that I have an obstetrician. He's excellent. But I need a good midwife. Because otherwise this will end in an emergency C-section. And as I cannot have an epidural, I will miss the birth of my baby. I'll be under general anesthetic. And I do not want to miss that.
No.
So I did some research online, and your name came up. And this is the good old days where people could share data. So I called Hammersmith Hospital, where you were working. I mean, Queen Charlotte Hospital, which is where I was meant to give birth in the private wing. And you were working there. And I got your mobile number, which is amazing. I called you. And you said to me, I would love to help you birth, but I can't promise you that because I might be helping someone else. But if I'm not already helping someone else birth, I will come. Take my, send me a text. You said to me, send me a text when you go into labor. When is your due date and so on. Send me a text. So when labor started, it was, of course, Easter Sunday because my son had to pick a complicated day. Easter Sunday, my poor obstetrician was probably having a lovely weekend with his children, and so were you. And I texted, I said, I'm in labor, and you really monitored me and said, okay, how intense is it? And when it was time to come to hospital, you told me to come. The other book that greatly helped me was a book called Birth Skills by Juju Sundin.
Oh, yeah.
And in this book, she explains, because during my first birth, I did all the antenatal class, I did hypnobirthing, but they never told me what to do with my body. And in this book, she says, if you want to slow down labor, you do this. If you want to accelerate, you do this. Rock your hips like this, do that. So I knew what to do with my body.
Yes. So important.
So important. So I was doing these things at home. And then I came, and you were there. Kirsten was there. I was in a pool. And then it was time to push. And I pushed for a while. I was sitting on this stool, a bit like what during the first time I birthed.
Yeah.
And the baby was not coming out. And you understood that I needed to be on all fours because the bottom of the spine was stopping the head, right?
Yes.
Which the first time we didn't do. That's why we had to use forceps. So you pulled me out of the pool. I went on all fours. And I think you said to me in the next contraction, his head's coming out. You knew when his head came out. I thought I was going to I thought I was ripped in two and I would never be one again.
Oh.
I had these images of, medieval times where you said, But actually you were so amazing because I barely had a little tear because you put your hand there, which is a midwife skill, to put the hand to stop the skin that's so stretched from tearing.
Yeah.
So despite having a huge baby, I only needed like 1 point or something. It was amazing. So thank you for that. And when JJ came out, he was purple because he had the cord around the neck twice. And then the next step is his shoulder was stuck, which in itself can be really dangerous. And you said to me, just slowly turn. I remember. And you managed to pull him out safely. And there was a knot again in the cord. And all of this, he came out, he was purple. They gave him a bit of oxygen. And after 20 minutes, he was totally fine.
Yeah.
And that was thanks to you, because you listened. When I said to you, I have a feeling I need help, I could sense that there was going to be complications. You listened.
I think it's so important, the visceral feeling of the mother, that you really listen, because they know they have the little baby in them. They're in the labour. And it's, as a midwife, being timely. Should you stay in the pool? No, they're saying something to me. Come out the pool. What's the best way if the babies are bigger is often being on all fours, because you widen the pelvis, give the baby enough space. Now with your little baby, obviously we hit a few other little things, the 2 loops of cord and then the shoulder. And often if you're in the all fours position, you can go in and find the posterior arm and pull baby out, because it reduces the distance of the shoulders so they can pop under the top of the pelvis and then come out. So there were a few things there, but I think as a midwife we have many skills, and we do professional training with lots of obstetricians and midwives and everyone. So you're quite used to these things. But it's almost like with anything, listen to the mother, be ahead of the wave, don't be behind the wave. That's what I always feel. And if you have a tummy feeling or a doubt, or the mother has a tummy feeling or a doubt, do something different, because why? Why? And always keep very calm, because mothers want to know what's happening. They have a lot of perception with that. But you don't want to sort of shout and scream, right now, must do, oh my gosh, because then the stress goes up. They want to run away from the birth. They're very, very scared. They feel very traumatized afterwards. So I think it's doing things in small bursts. You can do it. We need to get you out. We need to get the pelvis a little bit wider. You're doing fine. Let's just see what we've got. Behind the door, we've got a team ready if we need everyone. And obviously sometimes as midwives we act and we do what we do. And then we've also got others to come in, like the neonatal doctor to be there. So it's a little bit of a dance, but keep the dance calm. If you're calm, everyone is calm. And then you can do your actions quickly and the mother knows what's happening. But just keep the stress down. And I think even more so in a time where women are very anxious. There are lots of things we should be doing antenatally to keep the stress down, to listen. And there's many techniques they can adopt just to be able to rehearse and prepare for birth, which we'll talk later.
What I've noticed, and first I just want to make a disclaimer that us as mothers, we have a tendency to feel guilty whatever we do.
Yeah.
Okay, so my son JJ was born with a birthmark on his left arm, I immediately thought, what did I do wrong when I was pregnant?
Yes.
Which it has nothing to do with anything I've done. But so I want to put this disclaimer out, because for all the mothers or mothers-to-be who are listening, we birth the best we can. Some women might have planned C-section because they need to. Some might have emergency C-section because the baby needs to be saved. Some women will birth naturally with epidural, others won't. So please, to all the listeners, let's just remove the guilt, because we are wired to have guilt, so we do not abandon our baby. I think, instinctively, this is why we have this thing of, I remember when my boys were little, if I went away and I did something away from them for an hour or two, I felt guilty.
Yes.
But that was the instincts pulling me back, because when we were cavemen, we had to stay next to them so they would survive.
Yeah.
So it's very important to be conscious of that this anxiety/guilt that is associated with motherhood has very much to do with survival of the species, but nothing to do with us doing things wrong.
So much. I mean, I think all pregnancy and birth is beautiful. All women are unique. Probably most reasons why interventions occur is not to do with the mother necessarily her wishes. It's to do with the baby's heartbeat, the position of baby, how long the labour is, maybe having medical complications. There's a lot in the sphere all packed in. I would also like to say within this that it's interesting how sometimes women can be deemed as very high risk, but actually, as the pregnancy goes on, become low risk. So there's many journeys that are like little river tributaries. You go along, checking, involving, teams of people like obstetricians along the way, sometimes specialists, fetal medicine. But you just go with the moment of the time. And a little example of this was a lady recently who had a placenta previa. It wasn't just a tiny bit, it was right across the neck of the womb. So the baby can't come through at the time of birth through the placenta, because the placenta is its little house of survival. And this went on. Big disappointment for the lady. I want a normal vaginal birth. And of course we discussed, let's just go right now. It's not possible. But very much to my huge surprise, I've never seen a placenta so across the neck of the womb. Right at the end, at 36 and a half weeks, this placenta had come right up. And this lady had a normal vaginal birth, which was her wish. So I think we have to be careful about labelling.
Yes.
And also when we get to, there's a lovely story actually of a lady who moved house. She was 41. She was at a central London hospital. She was incredibly healthy and well in every way. And she came to see me at another hospital. And I wasn't quite sure why she came to see me, but somebody had said, come and see Jenny. And I saw her and she said to me, my wish is to have a home water bath. And I said to her, well, that's a little hard for me to help you with that because I'm at a different hospital in a different area and I can't come to your area because I'm employed in this area. And she said to me, don't mind about that at all. I'm going to move. And I said, what do you mean move? I'm going to move to your hospital and I'm going to have a house in the region of that hospital. And I said to her, my goodness, that's a lot of upheaval for a pregnancy. I think she was about 24 weeks, maybe something like that. She said, no, that's fine. So she rented a house and she joined the hospital. And she had the most beautiful home birth in the water. And that was her choice. That was her wish. And that was an extraordinary journey of how far she would go to achieve her choice for birth. And I think you have choices like that that are so interesting. On the other hand, I remember a call from a lady, and it was only a phone call, and she had a lot of problems. She had preeclampsia. It was getting worse. They were worried that she wouldn't be able to clot well, and she needed to have a cesarean, and it was all very hard. And she said to me, "But I won't see my baby. I won't know anything about my baby. They're going to knock me out. I'm going to be in theatre, and it's all lost. Everything's lost. I didn't want it this way." And I said to her, "You speak to the team, you speak to your consultant, and you get your husband all prepared for doing the skin to skin while you're still coming out the anaesthetic, which won't be long because we give light anaesthetics." And I said to them, "You just speak to the team and ask them to film your birth, every bit." And I said, "Say to them, I want you to respond to my little baby as if I'm fully awake, and talk the whole way through." And they even let the husband in the end come in. Obviously, it's difficult when your wife is actually completely unconscious, not unconscious, but sedated. But they let him just come in the side and have the baby skin to skin, and made preparation outside until she just came round. And then they were together. So it's always trying to look at the tapestry of where you're at within the pregnancy and birth, and looking, how can you do it better? How can you do it better? Because that moment changed that mother's whole perception of her birth.
Yeah. I can imagine.
It was just wonderful. She saw her baby at the same time as the team in a film.
Yeah.
So,
because she got the power back.
She got the power back.
So with my first son, I felt that the power was taken away from me. And what's really weird is because he was OP, so
yeah,
his spine was against mine, so those contractions were extremely painful because the womb had to turn him.
Yes.
I think I separated from my body because I couldn't have an epidural and the pain was so intense. And after he was born, for a long time, I couldn't feel my body. If I would hurt myself or if I needed a bathroom, I had separated.
Yeah.
And I became conscious of that. So for the second time round, I thought I need to ensure I have power.
Yeah.
That I feel that I have some sense of control. And what happened was, despite giving birth to this monster, who's now 6'5", 197, he was just a big person to start with. He's always been a big person. After giving birth to him, when they gave him the oxygen and then they put him on my chest, we did skin to skin, then skin to skin with his dad. And during the oxygen, his dad was next to him, touching him, talking to him. When he was doing the skin to skin with his father, I was back to normal.
Yes.
I was back to normal. I wanted to have a shower.
Yes.
I looked at the birthing room going, "Oh, I need a shower."
Yeah.
And I remember saying, "Can I have a shower?" And you said to me, "Now?" I said, "Yes, please." And one of the nurses said, "Well, the room next door is clean." So I went there, I had a shower. I remember I moisturized my body. I put some moisturizer on my face. I brushed my hair. I put pajamas on, and I was back in the room. Because I felt I was in my body.
Yes. Yes, you wanted to go back to being yourself. And I think that's the other thing. I often say to people, you've got to connect the head to the uterus. It's all one workable sort of thing. And you meet some people are very, very good at that removal in terms of, I remember a lady not so long ago, and she had an eye mask on, and she was walking in a space on a birth centre. And every so often she was so sort of in her space, she'd put her hand on the rail just so she knew she was still there.
Amazing.
And she just said, I was doing the listening and all the little things I needed to do as a clinician to ensure normality. and safety. And I just want to interrupt here. Midwifery is not normality at the cost of anything else. Normality, we are practitioners of. And if we go into a grey area or we go into away from normality, we need to ensure that information and support and help is available for an obstetrician, sometimes a psychiatrist, sometimes, a physiotherapist. But we need, when our role finishes, we need to ensure that there's safety out with that, and explain to the mother why.
Yeah.
And the mother in the conversation at all times. So just going back to this lady in the birth centre, she just didn't say anything to me. She said, I'm not going to talk to you, Jenny. I'm just going to know you're there. She walked around the room for some hours, up and down and round. And she only said to me, take it down, take it down, take it down. So this was very interesting. And then she pulled off her mask and she said, Jenny, I need an epidural and I need it now.
Wow.
And I said, oh. And then I said, the baby is coming.
That's why.
That's why.
It's
and
the moment where we feel we can't do it anymore.
Yeah. And you say, you can do it. You can do it. And then she said, oh. And then she could feel the baby was going to come. And she delivered the baby. And it's just so beautiful, the strength and the power of the women and the choices. And I think it doesn't matter how the baby is born, because you can have any sort of birth, having choices, having the power of your own being, and having people around supporting you in whichever birth, and just always hold on to that. And we need to make birth the most humane possible. And we really need to listen, because if you're a part of your own journey, that's special. And sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, my last birth was so terrible, terrible, terrible. And then you sit with them and you say, okay, let's talk to me. Just take time. It doesn't matter what you say, just tell me. And sometimes within me, I'm thinking, what was it? It's not clear, oh, the hospital, someone said this or that, or she felt this and that. It's such a huge thing that must be so acknowledged, as that's her mirror of the feeling of what happened. And I now, on the other side, need to interpret the mirror from how now can you go forward to have more of what you want the next time.
Yes.
Because you have to sort of have a chapter and you have to have a sort of closure. Otherwise, the last experience goes into the next one and they get so combined that there's so much stress. It's got to be this, it's got to... So you've actually got to relax it all down. And then often I say to someone, what were the good bits?
Mm.
And they say, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about the good bits. I said, go to the beginning of the pregnancy. How did you feel when you were pregnant? What did you do with your partner? Did you go walking in the park? And she, oh, yes. Did you hold your baby in the womb? Did you read to your baby in the womb? Did you touch your soul with your baby? Did you think of what your baby was doing? Do you remember thinking the splashing of the baby in the water? And you're going to meet your baby as your bump gets bigger. And then the conversation just changes because they hadn't thought about the beautiful bits. It was just perhaps I didn't get clean sheets and nobody seemed to be with me at the end and somebody left. So it's like having to have the mirror of the happiness and the joy, and then looking at the bits that were not the same for them. The perception was hard and it was difficult and they wish you didn't have it. And then how can we change that going forwards? And I think often people talk about debriefing, but really debriefing needs to go much deeper into the conversation. It's not, well, the sheets weren't changed at the hospital, and that was huge for me because it was. It's deeper than that. And it's also giving people permission to ask for things. It's their body and their birth and their baby. And they need to say, excuse me, I need my sheets done now. We need to be vocal. We need to be encouraged to say our wishes and our needs. And that's human needs. I need to pass urine. I need to go now. You know, we've got to look at it in a more gentle, and I'm not saying, you know, birth, there's drama in being a midwife. There's drama in being in maternity. There are times where we have to move really fast and we need to get little babies out to make sure they're safe and sound. But we also then need to take the stress down, and we need to have these conversations perhaps a little bit more slowly and gently. Something also I think needs to change dramatically, and I think this is a mission that I have, is we need to change maternity architecture, particularly in the postnatal areas, where you have, 6 mummies, 6 daddies or partners or support person, 6 babies. So in a small ward, you have 12 people plus the partners, 18 people in a small space with a curtain. And particularly if it's your first baby, or maybe there's a problem you need to stay in for a little bit longer, it's really hard these first day or two. And there was a lovely dad that spoke to me about this, and he said, and he was very white, and I said to him, you must go home. Go and sleep and come back. And he said, I went home, Jenny, and I lay down. And I did rest. But I kept waking up, hearing all the babies and jolting. And I think we need to look at, having pods for mummy, baby, and partner, and do it better, because you're falling over, a chair because you can't see it from someone else's cubicle into the next cubicle. And it's just so much noise and so much going on that I think for everyone there, it would be so much better to re-look at that environment. We've got better at looking at birthing environments, even on labour. I did a lot of work on that in my time. But I think now we need to look at postnatal. And once the little person comes out on the womb and the outside in what I call the pink bubble, we need to be a bit more gentle and less busy and calming in that time before the transition of going home happens. Because often that first day when you get home, you think, oh my gosh, this is my baby. And it's a lot of wrangling. The first day or night, people call me up a lot saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Has the baby had enough food? Is the baby okay? It's that transition. And I think the transition could be more gentle in the hospital to make the preparation for home a bit more gentle.
And those days are so crucial. So with my first baby, I was very lucky that I had a lady teach me to breastfeed. So coming back to William's birth, his heart rate started dropping. He was in distress. And the way I saw birth, it wasn't not me birthing a baby. We were doing this together. And I was thinking it's very painful for him too, because he needs to squeeze out of this small canal. So we're hurting, but they're hurting. And I remember talking to him when the heart rate dropped. I said, my baby, I was speaking to him in French. I was saying to him, Mon bébé, ne t'inquiète pas. Don't worry, my baby. We're doing this together. You're going to be fine. Just hold on. The doctor is coming to get you. It's all okay. I was talking to him, and the doctor pulled him out. I'll never forget his face. When Dr. McCarthy held Will above me, Will was checking me out. I'll never forget his little gremlin face. I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast. He's going to hate this, being a teenager. But he was checking me out. Yeah. He was like, this is the voice. This is her.
This is my mummy.
And JJ, after he was born, because he was so big, had the drop in blood sugar levels. And the midwife came and said, if it continues, we're going to have to give him a bottle. And I wanted to breastfeed. So it's the same thing. I spoke to him. I said, I'm going to keep you close to me, so you're saving your heat. You're keeping all the energy. I'm warming you up. You're going to have my booby. We're going to do this. You will pull through. And next time she came, she checked his blood sugars and they were fine.
Yeah.
But coming back to the crucial first hours after birth, I have seen many friends struggling with breastfeeding. And I was very lucky thanks to a lady. William, my first baby, would not latch on. So breastfeeding didn't work. And I rang the bell in the middle of the night and this midwife came. She was very funny, actually. She was, I think, from Uganda and she was singing songs. So she took the baby, she waddled him, she started singing a little song with the baby. And then she looked at me and she goes, breastfeeding doesn't come easy. And she grabbed my boob, flattened it, took his head and shoved it down his throat. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And he latched on. And I got it. I was like, it's not like a little thing. You need to just shove it in. This is how it works. She was like, breastfeeding doesn't come easy. She almost scolded me, but in a funny way, like in a light-hearted way. But she changed the game for me.
Yes.
Whenever the baby couldn't latch on, I just remember, just take it, flatten it, push it as much as possible, and the baby could do it.
The boom.
And
the
so
big mouth, boom.
Boom. And so the baby got it, and after that it was done. Yeah. And with the second one, I just did the same thing.
Yeah.
But that person at that time was crucial.
Yeah.
Because had she not been there, and the baby had spent 10 hours trying to latch, I had spent 10 hours trying to do it, I would have gotten irritated. Maybe the baby in his head is thinking, I can't do it either. The pattern is imprinted. And then problems start.
Yes.
So those few hours, I agree with you, there's got to be something structured to set women on the right path.
Yes.
To confidence into looking after that child, to feeling better, to recovering. Thank you for listening so far. We'll be continuing this conversation in part 2, so make sure you're subscribed to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast so you do not miss it. In the meantime, for those of you who are not members of the platform yet, we have a discount code for all our podcast listeners. You can get 15% off all Eat, Burn, Sleep memberships. Just enter the code podcast15 at checkout on the memberships page on eatburnsleep.com. We still have so much more to cover, so please stay tuned.